Rise up, the Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. The crew is back, and now it's time to rise up. The Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. Rise up, rise up. The Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. The crew is back, and now it's time to rise up. The Dukes are back, and now it's time to rise up. Rise up.
And we're back for another episode of the D's on Fire podcast, where we actually get to talk about the ball that we watched. Alec,
Yes.
There's a lot of things that we're going to have to talk about on this one. One of the biggest, I think, is not necessarily about the game itself, but about how this rotation is going to work out, how the coaches are going to juggle all of these players. There's a lot of great things shown by each player, really, but I don't know how they're all going to see the court.
Yeah. Especially with, thought it was interesting. Obviously, Barre started, but only played 7 minutes in this game.
Yeah.
Dixon obviously got bulk of the minutes, I would say, I guess, at the 5. But yeah, there's a lot of minutes to go around for a lot of players, similar to last year, but totally different skill sets though this year.
Yeah. Barre, it felt like a reward for all the hard efforts he put in to get the start. But yeah, he didn't look 100%, definitely. And if he was, he might have played more. But like you said, there's so many different skill sets. It's hard to say one guy is definitely going to get a lot of playing time. Dixon got a decent amount of minutes. He did look good at times. He looks like he was still making some young guy mistakes at times as well. The team as a whole gave up a lot more rebounds than I thought they would against a team that didn't look nearly as big or interior oriented as the Dukes should be.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think this team is a little smaller, is what I noticed compared to last year. With the loss of Rotroff and Joe Reese were probably our biggest players. We have a lot of athleticism and decent size, but like not the true like 6'10" guys on this team. Everyone's kind of hovering around 6'7", 6'8" at that 4-5 position. So, but that was still a little surprising that we didn't rebound as well as I thought we would.
Yeah. And speaking of lack of size but athleticism, Trey Williams has really slimmed out, really changed his body, which was a topic that Dambrot brought up several times this offseason, but I hadn't really fully captured it until I saw him live, and man, he's completely transformed.
Yeah, that white was very slimming on him. Well, it's not just the jersey. He put a lot of work into that, so I won't discredit him that way.
Yeah, I mean, he could really defend basically any position at this point now.
Yeah, and I was, as I said in the preview, like I thought he was kind of a penciled in starter, not because of the skill set necessarily, just because I know that's, he's the longest tenured Duke on this team. Dambrot loves him, veteran guy. Just kind of thought that probably like I guess he's most likely a captain on the team. I don't really know that for fact, but I would take a reasonable guess that he is a captain.
Yeah, they didn't really announce captains this year. Last year, there was an emphasis that the different facets of the teams, there would be a captain for each. Rozier being the bench captain, and then
definitely a veteran leader is basically what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I thought he could have started, but I liked him off the bench. I think he should get a lot of minutes still, but off the bench I think is a solid start. But there's a lot of season to go around. I mean, we can't make any like big determinations off of one game.
Yeah, and I don't think he's going to be the guy that we want to battle for the tip at the start of the game either. So, and whether he really fits in as a 4, I think last year kind of showed he's not necessarily a stretch 4 from an offensive skill set. It does seem like we really like the aspect of spreading the floor as much as we can. Definitely didn't seem as 3-point dominant on offense, or 3-point. We didn't rely on the three nearly as much, which was a great thing, I thought.
No, I thought that was a good thing as well. I think, last year we really struggled to get points in the paint other than like Joe Reese and Tre Clark driving to the lane. That kind of showed kind of true in terms of Tre Clark. Like he was obviously penetrating a lot on Monday. I almost forgot what day it was and what day we were recording. But I thought like the Drames were pretty good on the inside, at least getting the ball on the inside. They didn't finish as well as they probably could have on the inside, but I thought Dixon got a few nice buckets in the paint. So it was nice to see that we weren't relying on the three, because we know we have guys who can shoot the three. Obviously, Day, Tre Clark, Rozier will get there. I think he had a so-so game, but it was his first start. It's early in the season. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, Point Clark made an appearance, and Dambrot talked about in the post game where he does think Trey is going to get a lot more minutes as a point guard, and
I love that.
Yeah, he looked great in his first role. He wasn't too selfish. He did drive a lot, and so did Day, which we both emphasized last year. The offense looked best with those guys penetrating and creating space for other players, or just getting to the rack and getting foul calls. Day shot, I think, 11 free throws this game. That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yep. To be fair, a lot of those, I think like 3 of those were on 3-pointers.
He
so that doesn't necessarily say he was driving in the lane. But hey, he went 8 of 11 from the free throw line. But so the way me and Nick work, like he watches everything else that goes into the game. I just watch the games. So all of my thoughts are just like coming from my head. And I was thinking the same, like Point Trey. I think we should go like 10 to 15 minutes a game with him as the lead point guard on the team. I think I think Dambrot should stagger Rozier and Tre Clark minutes as like for a good solid chunk of the game. What Tre Clark he had?
Well, he got reduced minutes in this.
He had 8 assists yesterday.
Yeah, that's reduced minutes too, because he had 4 fouls for a lot of the.
And we saw this last year too. Like we saw that he had this potential to pass like this and create off the dribble. And it's all because he's penetrating the paint, defense collapse, he kicks out, and he's very good at that.
Yeah. Speaking of the other point guard, Kareem Rozier, he didn't have necessarily his best game, but still made those winning plays, those tough, gritty plays that he's known for. At the end,
he was
of the
there
game,
defensively for sure. Yeah.
End of the game, getting that rebound, diving on the floor, making sure nobody else is touching the ball and calling timeout. I mean, that won the game. That play held on to that win.
That's part of the reason why, like, you don't want to just look at the box score for Kareem Rozier. Like, you need to kind of watch the game to see what he brings to this team. I think he'll do that all season long. I have no doubt that the energy and effort will be there at all times. If he can put it together with his shot, kind of run the offense like Tevin Brewer did last year, he showed signs of that. But yeah, he definitely came through in the clutch yesterday when it counted.
And speaking of game-winning plays, the corner 3 by one of the Drame twins. Yeah, that was perfect. And that was the Drame twin who's more interior offensive oriented, according to Coach Dambrot, before the game and after the game. So, I mean, they know how to win. He mentioned it in his press conference. They've been on winning teams. They were part of that St. Peter's run where they went to the Elite Eight. They've started their entire careers basically similar to Trey. He commended all 3 of those guys for not taking it poorly that they were coming off the bench to start this one, and they were all ready to make impacts once they did get onto the floor.
Yeah, I thought they were impressive. Especially, I like the athleticism that they bring at like the 3-4 position. We didn't have that last year, like whatsoever. We didn't have that body type. kind of this team size and athleticism wise reminds me of like the Toronto Raptors, kind of like all kind of rangy, lengthy guys around the same height, at least at the 3, 4, 5 position, I should say. I'm not including Day Day.
Yeah, if you want to
and
go back to
Rozier.
the Fred Van Fleet days, Rozier fits in well.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I thought they were both the Dramas played really well yesterday.
Yeah. And then we saw a few other guys make their debuts. Jake DeMichelle, who there was an article written and posted probably a few hours before the game started that he's a local kid. Dambrot's expecting him to be like a 6-man off the bench. He didn't get nearly as many minutes as the article led you to believe, but didn't look too bad coming off as a wing option, as well as Jakub Nekis, the freshman European. I didn't see much from him, but he also didn't look like he was out of place. He didn't look like the game was too fast for him, which is good, especially for a freshman getting his first minutes. And then the stretch four, who kind of dominated on the inside for most of his game, blanking on his name, Savrasov.
Savrasov, yep.
He didn't finish the ball too well, but he had some great moves to get shots up.
I can definitely see like he didn't shoot the best. I think he was. Yeah, I'm looking at the box score, 1 for 5 yesterday for Savrasov, but I liked a lot of what I saw. Like you said, he got to the rim multiple times, just couldn't finish it. But I think he just probably shot poorly. Like I think most of the time, those will go in. He also had like a nice pick and pop game where he can just spot up from 3 after the pick. That's kind of RJ Gunn couldn't really do that. Like he didn't really pick and pop. He was more of like just a spot up catch and shoot shooter. So I kind of like what Savrasov does there for the offense. I definitely see the potential. I think he just shot poorly yesterday, but I'm looking forward to seeing him more.
Yeah. And then, I mean, we touched on Dixon. He didn't look his best, but he still had solid minutes when he was out there. He still, I think, might be the second highest or highest upside big that we have with the athletic potential.
Yeah, I'm not going to go. It's hard to judge like what Bari did yesterday with the limited minutes, and he got in foul trouble early in that first half. So I'm not going to sit here and say like Dixon should definitely be starting over Bari, but I love what I saw from Dixon yesterday. Like it was pretty much the glimpses I saw last year, except in extended minutes. What he has 6 rebounds, 1 block. Definitely altered shots even without getting a block. Like I just love him defensively for this team.
Yeah, your love for Dixon is equivalent to my love for Trey Williams. I realized that while watching the game. He's just the guy that I always love seeing on the floor, and I'm sure that Dixon is that same with you, with how we've talked about both of those players.
I'm trying to like resist it by I want to give Bari a chance in my, like, not that my opinion actually matters, but about talk when it comes to this podcast and talking about this team, like I want to give Bari his shot because clearly Dambrot sees something in him. He started. He obviously probably deserves that. So
yeah,
I just need to see more of him. I mean, we didn't really see a lot of him last year either, to be fair.
No, he's had a lot of health issues, whether it be the heart-related condition or I think he had a foot injury to start the year last year that caused him to miss. And then you and I texted over the past week that we found out that Dixon's recovery from the offseason was a meniscus surgery. I was like, he's even more of your guy. You guys are linked in so many different ways. So similar.
Yep. Yep. Tore my ACL and I had a bucket handle tear in my meniscus in the summer of 2016. So I had a surgically repaired knee that year. Meniscus tear probably wasn't as bad as mine, to be fair.
True.
I had a bucket handle tear. Quote, shredded from my orthopedist. Frost remembers that very well.
Yeah. And if not for that tear, you could have been David Dixon. Who knew?
or Zlatan. My orthopedist repaired Zlatan Ibrahimovic's ACL as well. So that's a fun fact.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of any other major things that I wanted to go about. From the guard position, it seems like the main three that we thought were going to be the guys playing the clutch minutes are probably going to play the clutch minutes. It does seem like Rozier probably isn't going to be playing as many minutes as Day and Tre on a normal basis, but when it matters, I think you're going to have him out there. I mean, he's a great leader. He's a great floor general. He's a true point guard, and you need that, especially when the games get tight.
Yeah. I think it'll probably depend on the matchup sometimes too. Like for closing lineups, I could see one of the Drames being out there just for size, and kind of going more into that point Tre sort of role, instead of having Rozier out there. But I mean, he's definitely going to play a lot of minutes, a lot of games. I just think he shot poorly yesterday. Like I'm not necessarily worried like long term his role on this team.
Yeah, and it's strange because Tre looked so good, but because the Drames did look great, I'm much less concerned about him being in foul trouble being a huge, like, I don't think it's going to cause us to lose games if he has to sit for foul trouble now. Whereas before I saw them play, point. I was terrified of that happening.
Yeah, anytime, because he was our only defender, pretty much, Tre Clark. And to be fair, Day played, I thought, really well defensively. I think he showed glimpses of that last year, just wasn't always mentally on top of it, especially off ball. But I thought he had a pretty solid game defensively yesterday.
Yeah, I do think we were a little lax, especially whenever it came to switching on screens. That was part of the reason why I forget the guy's name now. Holder, who was the guard that killed us? Lauer. Yeah, he took advantage of a few lazy switches and drained threes, especially towards the end of the game.
He was just also on fire.
He was,
to be fair.
But I mean, when a guy is on fire like that, you also don't want to give him open looks.
Right. Yeah. No, that's fair. That's fair.
So that was one thing I didn't think the perimeter defense was as good as it can be, and we still came out with a win. We didn't shoot the ball as well as we could, and we still came out with a win. It wasn't, I definitely don't think it was.
I thought it was a solid basketball game on both sides, to be honest. There weren't any glaring holes by either team. I think it was a dogfight, and I mean the final score shows it. I mean, we won by a bucket.
Yeah, but I will say this. When I went into and watched the game live, I realized how terrible it is to have realistically high expectations in watching games, because I came into the game expecting dominance, and then even though they weren't playing poorly, the dread just came in like, oh man, this season could be devastating.
Yeah, like I forget. I mean, it feels like we did the preview podcast last year, but I think going into this game we had a high probability of winning this game.
Yeah, I think we were in the
79% or something. Yeah, it was like over 75%. And the fact that it was a 2-point game, that's college basketball though. That's what we have to remind ourselves. Like college basketball, anything can happen. 16 seeds beat 1 seeds nowadays, 15 seeds. So
yeah, and I mean,
this type of stuff can happen.
Cleveland State is pretty consistently an NCAA tournament team. I mean, it's partly because their conference isn't necessarily the best, but they showed that they're probably going to be another contender for an NCAA tournament bid this year with how good they looked against us.
Yeah, I thought it was a good game overall. I thought it was a good, solid matchup to start the game. Pretty much both teams were on similar levels, at least, last night. But not overly. I don't think there was anything where we can just sit here and talk all day long about we need to improve this aspect of the game.
Yeah, and I mean that'll come the more we watch and the more consistently we see things. But yeah, it was a good game. I'm really happy about the potential that this team has, and I am excited to see what our A game looks like, because I feel like, I understand you said it was a solid game. I think it was maybe a B minus game from our team. I don't think we were anywhere close to our top potential.
Sure, a solid game to start the season, I should say. I mean, I don't think we're anywhere. No team is close to their final form at this point.
Yeah, and
But I'm excited. I would say the most excited just for Tre Clark to continue to improve. Like you can just see his dribbling, his handles are a lot tighter. The passing was like immaculate. His overall game has just really come together. It looks like.
yeah, and for him to make it to the next level, which I'm sure is a goal of his, I mean, because of his height, it seems like he'd have to become a point guard to really make a chance at taking that next step. So that it's great for him and it's great for the team because he does it really well, and he's so athletic.
Oh, yeah. He had 3 steals yesterday. I mean, he probably definitely could have had more if he didn't get into foul trouble, which some of those foul calls were questionable anyway. But
Whoa!
I'll let that kind of.
Oh my God,
I
people!
can't believe I said that first before you.
Yeah,
did.
I was staying away from it. I was like, it's first game. I'm not gonna get onto the refs at all. And Alec,
Well, I'm not gonna. I won't go into a 5 minute segment about it. I'll just quickly just sneak it in there.
all right, you're not gonna go foul by foul as to questioning calls at all for the entire podcast. No.
Not yet. Not yet. There's too much season for that.
Speaking of, Burton did look good in his Villanova debut as well. Don't know if you watched that.
Honestly, no, I didn't.
He had a few highlight plays. There was one sequence where I think every Villanova player dived on the floor to get a steal and then recover the ball. And then he was the guy that ended up getting the ball, passed to a guy, made a defensive play. Before that, I think a block, and then came back after the loose ball was recovered and hit a three, and the place erupted. So he's looking pretty good over there.
That's a good way to ingratiate yourself as a Wildcat.
Yeah. And I'll say this, him, for whatever reason, in a Villanova jersey, not nearly as high school jock stereotype as he was in that Richmond jersey. I don't know what it is. Perhaps maybe because we weren't playing them, but I don't know. Something changed.
Different division, maybe.
Yeah.
Different conference. Yeah, who knows?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to touch on about this one.
Yeah, I have my notes up. We kind of naturally talked about most of the things that I'm excited for Savrasov. I think he's going to be a really solid starter.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't really have any post-dominant moves aside from Savrasov, but we have guys who can do it. Tre ate on the opportunities that he got from Tre Clark, feeding him the ball on the drives. I mean, Tre Clark had only 8 assists, but all of them were like either layups or wide open dunks that he basically led.
Yeah, or wide open 3-pointers, honestly, like just kicking it out. No, yeah, it was a solid first game. We almost really close to losing it. But I mean, win's a win. Move on to the next game.
Yeah. Speaking of moving on to the next game, Charleston, neutral site. I am not nearly as optimistic about our chances because, well, Charleston also won a close game to open up their season at home. But I guess I'm just worried because I thought our roles would be a little clearer with how many returning players we had, but it doesn't seem like we have that yet. I'm worried that Charleston might, and that might be the difference this early on in the season on Friday.
Yeah, it's going to be a close game. I'm looking at KenPom right now. 54% probability of Duquesne winning. That's a good sign, I guess, but only the projected scores will win by 1 bucket, or 1 point, I should say. It looks like it's going to be another tough game. I mean, didn't watch Cleveland or Charleston versus Iona, so can't really preview that much about it, but should be another good game, another solid opponent to get us revved up.
Yeah, and it's crazy that we're playing on a neutral site that actually probably has some national attention to it.
Yeah, no, I was looking. I could actually, if I really wanted to,
Head over to Maryland.
drive to this game.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about an hour and 40 minutes from where I work in Delaware. So I could just scoot right over there
All right.
right after work on Friday.
So if I see a random Alec in the stands, I'll know you made quite an effort to get there.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely won't be attending this game. It'll be too late on Friday. So
yeah, I won't be attending that game either, but I will be in attendance Monday night against Stony Brook. Gonna take
Nice.
Archer and one other family member, depending on who's available. I think it will be my brother, but we'll see. Down to the Dukes game. I don't know.
I have to. Yeah, it looks like St. Joe's. Yeah, St. Joe's is coming January 20th, so that'll probably be the first time. I'll be in Pittsburgh around for Thanksgiving, but they're gonna be away from Pittsburgh at that time.
Yeah,
that's the Nebraska game.
Yeah, and I'll be away from Pittsburgh at that time too, so we won't be able to hang out in person and do a live pod again. But
probably one game this year, probably.
Yeah, we'll make it work. Yeah, we don't...
Yeah. Did you have anything specifically for Charleston, like preview wise?
No, and I mean for the statistical deep dives, you're always the one that does that. But no, I mean I just know they had a good run last year. They're supposed to do well again this year. They're expected to be their conference's pick for the NCAA tournament. I don't know. We'll see how they play, and we'll react to the ball that we watched.
I will say I'll definitely have more statistical deep dives as the season goes along. Kind of need like a 5 to 8 game sample size at least.
Yeah, is one game a little too small of a sample size, you think?
yeah. I'm gonna definitely draw the line at one game for sure. Probably push it out. I'll say 5 to at least make some reasonable statements or trends about this team.
Yeah. I did want to touch on the women's basketball team as well. They opened up their season against Princeton at Princeton. First quarter looked great, and from the final box score, our bigs dominated, their guards dominated, which is kind of surprising because going into the season, Meg McConnell, you expect her to be in national award conversations. I hate to say this. I think she got outplayed by the Princeton guard, Chen. In the first quarter when we did well, Chen still was scoring almost, not at will, but scoring pretty regularly, and she turned Meg over a few times, which you don't see. So it was kind of odd to see our bigs lead the team when it was so much guard-oriented last year. And I'm saying oriented so much this podcast. I don't know why that word has just stuck.
I do the same thing. I'll fall in love with like a certain word for a period of time. I didn't notice, honestly, so if that makes you feel any better.
I've noticed every time. I think I've said it 8 times already this podcast.
We're not professionals. We didn't go to journalism school. Actually,
well, yeah, I did, so that makes it worse. But yeah, there was no post-game press conference because it was an away game for the Dukes. I'd imagine Bert was probably a little disappointed. They do have some new coaches on the staff, not necessarily completely new. RJ Bell was a grad assistant. He's now an assistant coach. His dad is also an assistant coach and has been on the team. Cherie Lee, who was the longtime second in command, switched over to her alma mater this offseason. So Vanessa Abel, I think, stepped up from her position into a higher role. And it was a rough game, and it was an away game. So that the Lady Dukes have, I think, their first 3 or 4 games away, and then they open up at home against Pitt. So it's definitely a rough test to start the season, and then they'll hopefully find a groove here at some point.
Yeah, hopefully they'll learn early with that tough stretch. Yeah, that's especially first game at home against Pitt. That's really rough.
Yeah, but hey, we gotta win the city game. There's only one of them every year.
Yeah, especially now that the guys aren't doing it anymore.
Yeah, shout out to Capel for killing that. A game that the entire city loved to watch, or at least hear about. It's fine.
R.I.P.
Yeah. Maybe in 10 years it'll come back, but until that time.
Yeah, like the West Virginia Pitt game or in football I'm referencing.
Yeah. Or it'll be like Penn State Pitt, where they played for 2 years. It was great. Everybody loved it. And then it went away again.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically all I had from a basketball perspective. I do want to shout out the football team, who have clinched at least a share of the NEC Conference Championship. If they win this Saturday or next Saturday, they clinch sole ownership and they get to go to the playoffs again. And this was kind of supposed to be another rebuilding year, so ahead of schedule once again under Coach Schmidt.
No, yeah, shout out the football team. Great season so far. Hopefully they can get it done. Take that salt. We don't want to share that title.
No, and I mean they have 3 losses on the year: Coastal Carolina, West Virginia, and Delaware. All 3 schools, kind of teams you don't expect to beat when you're Duquesne. So, really great year from that perspective.
Absolutely, yeah, no doubt.
All right. For that, thanks for listening, folks. And as always, go Dukes.
Go Dukes.
The Dukes are back and now it's time to ride.